Hi all. In the last two modules, we have seen what was apartheid system and the African National Congress, national movement in Africa, role of Nelson Mandela in Africa. All this we discussed in the last two modules. Now, let us see the next part of this chapter. Why do we need a constitution? So we discussed why there was a constitution in South Africa, why people demanded for a constitution. Why do we need a constitution? It generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for different kind of people to live together. Definitely, in order to coordinate the people together in a single unit or under a common umbrella, we need a constitution. Actually, a constitution binds the people together in order to live together. It specifies how the government will be constituted, who will have power to take which decisions. Actually, it is the constitution that decides the structure of the government, that decides the power of the government. Also, constitution decides who has to elect the government. So all these are the main functions of constitution. In the absence of constitution, anyone can decide anything in any way, and that may lead to a suppressive government. So to avoid such a situation, constitution is very essential in any country. It lays down limits on the powers of the government and tells us what the rights of the citizens are. So once the government formed does not mean that that government can act like anything. So always there is a control over such governments by the constitution. Constitution puts control over the government so that it cannot act as it likes. It expresses the aspirations of the people about creating a good society. So along this, constitution reflects the dreams and aspirations of the people. So what are their aims and objectives? What are their goals? All these are mentioned in the constitution. All countries that have constitutions are not necessarily democratic, but all countries that are democratic will have constitutions. It is very clear. All countries that have constitutions are not necessarily democratic. The countries which have constitution may not be democratic, but all the democratic countries must have constitutions. After the War of Independence against Great Britain, the Americans gave themselves a constitution. You know that American Civil Rights Movement. After the American Civil Rights Movement, what happened? America adopted a constitution. After the Revolution, the French people approved a democratic constitution. We know that after the French Revolution in 1789, the French government also adopted a constitution. Since then, it has become a practice in all democracies to have a written constitution. Following this model, other countries also adopted the constitutions in their own respective countries. Every country drafts its own constitution. It is very clear. Each country drafts its own constitution without the help of outsiders. A constitution of a nation is the set of written laws accepted by people living together in a country. It is the definition. A constitution must be accepted by the people of that particular country, because constitution reflects the needs, the aspirations and dreams of the people. It generates trust and coordination. So constitution is the binding glue that coordinated the entire people together. It specifies how a government should be constituted. How? a government has to be constituted, what should be the nature, the character of a government, structure of a government, everything is very clearly mentioned in the Constitution. It lays down limits on the powers of the government. We already discussed. It puts control over the government. It expresses the aspirations of the people about creating a good society. So keeping all these features in mind, let us see how was the making of Indian Constitution. What were the circumstances under which the Indian Constitution was drawn up? This is what we are going to examine now. The making of the Constitution for a huge and diverse country like India was not an easy affair. It is very clear that India is a diverse country, isn't it? With a variety of features, many geographical features of the different groups, communities, isn't it? Racial groups, people with the different ideologies, different languages, culture, customs. So India is a diverse country, no doubt. The people of India were emerging from the status of subjects to that of citizens. We know that till the formation of Constitution. Indian citizens were like subjects. Earlier they were subjects under monarchy. Later they were the subjects under British rule. Now after the formation of Constitution, they virtually became the citizens of a country. The country was born through a partition on the basis of the religious differences. At least 10 lakh people were killed on both sides of the border in partition-related violence. Means what? We know after the independence, after the freedom movement, towards 1947 what happened? India became free, but there were two nations, free India and free Pakistan. So that was known as a partition. India had to be divided into two nations. So that was the unfortunate event that we witnessed, Indians witnessed towards 1947. That was called partition. So many people were killed on both sides of the border in partition-related violence. So in connection with this partition, there were a lot of violence all around the country and many people were killed. The British had left it to the rulers of the princely states to decide whether they wanted to merge with Indians or with Pakistan or remain independent. Many states, India was divided into many provinces during the British period and they were quite independent. So these provinces were given freedom to join any of the countries, either to Pakistan or to India. So no province was attached to any particular country. Therefore, provinces were given freedom to join any of the countries, either to Pakistan or to India. The merger of these princely states was a difficult and uncertain task. Therefore, it was really a task for Indian rulers to merge the Indian provinces along with the Indian state. When the Constitution was being written, the makers of the Constitution had anxieties about the present and the future of the country. Definitely, when the Constitution was prepared or when the Constitution makers were on the path of Constitution, they were full of anxieties and worries because they had no specific idea about India's future. As India was the country of diverse people, it was not an easy task to satisfy all sections of people together. Therefore, it was really a task for the constitution makers and therefore they were quite worried about the present and future of the country. You can see here the list of some countries. What are the British Constitution, Weimar Constitution, American Constitutions, Soviet Constitution. These constitutions were the sources of Indian Constitution. Means the Indian Constitution, the principles of Indian Constitution were mainly adopted from various constitutions of different countries. It adopted certain principles from British Constitution. Weimar Constitution means Constitution of Germany, American Constitution, Soviet Constitution, Canadian Constitutions, South African Constitution, Irish Constitution, Government of India Act 1935, means that during the British time, many rules were framed by British themselves. Those rules also were considered. Australian Constitution. So all these constitutions were the model to Indian Constitution. So certain principles were adopted from all these constitutions, also from Government of India Act 1935. Our national movement was not merely a struggle against a foreign rule, it was also a struggle to rejuvenate our country and to transform our society and politics. Means Indian national movement was really a platform for all the people to emerge together to create a common platform, common unit under a common umbrella. So a country with a national unity was really formed during the national movement. So that movement was really a rejuvenation for the country. The familiarity with the political institutions of colonial rule also helped to develop an agreement over the institutional design. So for years British was ruling India. Their rule also helped Indians to understand how a government should be followed, how a government should be led. All these were the experience of Indians during the British period. So they also understood about certain institutional design. The experience gained by Indians in the working of the legislative institutions proved to be very useful for the country in setting up its own institutions. During the British period, there were some provincial governments. For namesake, Indians were given some rights to participate in the provincial government. So that experience was quite useful to utilize to frame the constitution and to form a government in the free India. Means during the British period itself, some of the Indians were given the participation, representation to take part in the government. So that experience was quite useful for the Indians to frame the constitution, also to take part in the government in free India.